Hey, welcome to 1 Foot of Books. Yes, my name's Shard. I've got a book collection behind me and around me, and each episode of A Foot of Books is me measuring out 1 foot worth of books from my collection, and then kind of share them with you and a little info about the books, where I got them from, that kind of thing. I think a book collection's a really cool thing to share with people. It's always fun when people come over and see the books, and I thought I'd spread it out amongst the interwebs. So let's start, eh? Or else this takes ages. This is the making of Kubrick's 2001 paperback edition. I believe I got this from a Vinnie's at some stage. It's from 1970. It's a cool book. It's got tons of on-set photos, black and white, of course, because it was done in the 70s and it's paperback. Heaps of cool photos, heaps of cool stuff about the making of the immortal 2001. If you haven't seen it, why not? Yeah, it's a masterpiece. Haven't actually read this book, but it's looked good in the collection. Edward de Bono, The 5-Day Course of Thinking. If you're familiar with, sorry, there's dust all over these books, as is what happens with books. If you're familiar with self-help and stuff like that, Edward de Bono is a bit of a monolith in the scene. I think this edition is from 1968. No, 69. Yep, it's a Penguin one, so 69. Edward de Bono is really good in that he gives a lot of practical stuff in terms of changing the way you think, how you perceive. Yeah, I'd highly recommend. He takes effort because you got to put in the work, which is the key to everything, really. I've flipped in and out of this book every once in a while. It's got some cool little games you can play. Yeah, 5-Day Course of Thinking. Where did I get this from? Again, I think it was just like an op shop find, a Vinnie's or a Salvo's at some stage. Oh, this is a classic. Edward Luttwak, Coup d'etat, a practical handbook. If you ever wanted to know how to run a successful coup d'etat against a standing government, this is the book you need to read. I haven't read it. I got it. A friend of mine's, his wife's uncle died, and he had a massive political book collection, and he invited me over to the uncle's house one day after he had passed and said, "Hey man, thought of you when we saw all these. If you want to go through and kind of grab what you want respectfully." And I did. I walked away with a box of books. This is one of them. It's been on my list for ages to read as a political theory kind of fan sometimes when the mood strikes me. Yeah, it's a bit of a classic. I don't know if it's hard to find anymore, but this is the Penguin edition. I love Penguin editions, man. From 1969. Yeah, another 69er. I love 69s. M.R. James. M.R. James, if you've not heard of him, is a bit of a giant in the kind of gothic ghost story, horror story from the turn of last century. He does some great short stories. I've read a bunch of these ones. There's about, how many's in here? I think there's about 10 or 12. He's really good at painting a scene and imbuing his stories with a sense of dread. Kind of like Lovecrafty kind of thing, but way more old school Gothic English points of view. Yeah, really cool. If you ever see some M.R. James, collections or books, you would do well to get them and read them if you like ghost stories. He's a really good ghost story writer. A couple of Chomsky books. Noam Chomsky, September 11, all about the fallout of the September 11 attacks on the World Trade Center in New York City. All of 22 years ago now. 22 years ago this year. Again, another op shop find. I got this one actually from my friend at Urchin Books, Rachel. She recommended M.R. James to me. Thanks for the reco. I really liked it. Where did I get this from? Chomsky's stuff is kind of easy to find in op shops. There's lots of it around. He's written lots of stuff. So I was going through a stage there where I was just picking up Chomsky books whenever I found them, within reason, because he's written heaps. So I got this one, I think it was at the Tempe Tip Salvos in Sydney. Noam Chomsky, Imperial Ambitions. Another one I haven't read. Conversations with Noam Chomsky on the post 9/11 world. Interviews with David Barsimian. I haven't read it. Again, I've got it in just a Chomsky phase. You know, we all go through Chomsky phases. If we're white, liberal, Chomsky, yeah. Again, I think I got that from Salvos in Marrickville. I got this one, A Confederacy of Dunces. I got this from Gould Books in Newtown when they were in the big warehouse. It's kind of falling apart. I did manage to read it before it's kind of, you know, it probably won't survive another reading, but I do like this edition because it was the first one I read. And this is a 1983 edition. John Kennedy O'Toole. I'm sorry, not O'Toole, just John Kennedy Toole. He is a very good writer. He only wrote one book. He only got one book published, and it was by his mum after he committed suicide. He wrote this book, he killed himself. His mum was like, I want to get this book published. And she got it published, and it's great. It's one of the funniest books I've ever read. Books don't usually make me laugh out loud, but this one did. There's a lot of chuckle stuff in here, man. Ignatius J. Riley, what a character. What an amazing piece of fiction, comedy fiction. If you ever see a copy, get it, read it. It's hilarious. I've got a big place in my heart for A Confederacy of Dunces. Richard Brautigan. I was alerted to Richard Brautigan through the Father John Misty song. I think it was Teepees. He talks about trout fishing in America, Richard Brautigan's book. And I got Trout Fishing in America. I found it in a secondhand shop in the Salvos in Marrickville, where it seems like I get a lot of my books from, or did. I found that, I read that, I really liked it. And then not long after, but it could have been like a year later, there was a massive dump of Richard Brautigan stuff at the Salvos. So I bought it all. And Watermelon Sugar is one of his. Just a collection of little things, poems, essays, thoughts. He was a bit of he was a good writer. Not the nicest of men, not the nicest of humans, it turns out. But he was a good writer. Loved his booze. Didn't mind hitting women. Yeah, good writer, not a fantastic human. I haven't read this one. It's been on the collection for a while. I'll get to it at some stage. Teach Yourself Screenwriting. Raymond G. Frensham. Of all the books I've seen on screenwriting, this is like easy one of the best ones I've seen. I've got. I did write a couple of scripts like 20 years ago. You know, post-university dream of wanting to be a screenwriter, movie maker. There's a bookmark from a friend's old cover band, Ecstasy. Shout out to Harlem. Wow. I got this book 1990. Ooh. When did Batman and Robin come out? 1997. I got this book 1997 at Whitcoulls in Auckland with my friend David, and we struck up a conversation with the guy who sold it to us, and he was like a kind of a screenwriter too. I don't know where that guy is now. It's been 20 years. Who knows? Shout out to the Whitcoulls guy. I can't remember your name, but we both bought a copy of this, and it's a great book. It just deconstructs story, everything. I guess a lot of it's been repeated often over and over again by other writers. I think the Teach Yourself series was a thing back in the 90s. Good little book. I still dip in and out of it if I kind of, think about, oh, that'd be a good idea for a screenplay, and, jump in. Eric Berne, Sex and Human Living. I haven't read this one. I've read Eric Berne's books. I've read Games People Play, which everyone should read. It's a great little introduction to transactional analysis, which was a thing back in the 60s, but you can still apply a lot to reality today. And What Do You Say After You Say Hello, which was a great little book. Well, not little, it's pretty big, which was a great book. Just about human interactions and how you evolve as a living being. He was a really cool writer, Eric Berne. I haven't read this one yet. I got this. Where did I get this? I must have got this. I think it was at kind of a junk shop up in Dulwich. It's kind of falling apart. Up in Dulwich Hill. I don't know if it's even there anymore. It was just someone's, I think, every once in a while, just some weird person with a lot of stuff rents a shop and just puts for sale stuff on stuff. This is from 1983. I got it from there. Like I said, I don't know if it's there anymore. Oh, one of my favorite little books. Daniel O'Dear, The Job, William Burroughs. It's basically a collection of interviews that O'Dear had with Burroughs back in the late 80s, early 90s. And fantastic. I love this book. I haven't read it in a while. But when I first read it, I've read it probably a few times now. And it's great just to dip in and out of, because Burroughs was just a fountain of obscure, weird knowledge and crazy, just out there perspectives. He talks about how he delved into Scientology a little bit, Church of Satan, and just, talks about the Hashashin. Great book. If you ever see this around, get it. If you're a Burroughs fan, seek it out, find it. If you haven't got it already, amazing. I got this in a box from the editor of New Dawn magazine when I was writing for him, David Jones, and I don't write for them. I haven't written for them for a long time, but this was in a box that he sent me, a little care package. I was just like, awesome. Love this book. When's this from? When's this printed? I just love that he sent it to me. He just thought of me and just went, oh, that'd be good for Shard. This is a 1989 edition. So yeah, it looks like the interviews took place over the 70s and 80s. There you go. 1989. When I was hosting a breakfast radio show talking about conspiracy theories on a community radio station here in Sydney. Not often, but every once in a while, someone would send me something. And someone sent me this. It's the New Testament. A critique of the present mercantile establishment with some suggestions for real change and a better humane alternative before capitalism turns completely into George Orwell's 1984. It says that there. I've not read this cover to cover. I believe I've jumped in and out of it. Who's it by? Saltier. It's an acronym for Salt of the Earth. I don't even know who wrote this. It's called the New Testament. I don't know. If anyone wants to give me some info on this, let me know. It's got an ISBN, so Walter M. Miller Jr., A Canticle for Leibowitz. I uniformly love this book. I know my friend Rachel gave me this from Urchin Books. It's a Corgi edition from 1974. Walter Miller, not the happiest of humans. He wrote one book, this book, and about 25, 30 years later, he shot himself on his front lawn after his wife died. He called the hospital or whoever, the cops, and he just said, "There's someone dead here." Went outside, pow. Let's just say he was probably quite a conflicted human. A Canticle for Leibowitz is an amazing book. It's a classic of the sci-fi genre. It's broken into 3 parts. Basically about the loss and slow rediscovery of knowledge and insight by humans. So the first one, so we're basically, humans are almost wiped out by like nuclear war. But there's like a monastery that has a bunch of human knowledge stuff that they don't know what to do with, like electrical diagrams and circuits and manuals and things like that. And there's these monks that look after it and copy it out like they used to do with Bibles, like drawing circuit diagrams with gold inlays, and and they don't know what it does, but they know that deep down humans made it, so they knew what it did, but they're keeping it for the future, and the future is who knows how long. The second part is they've made an arc light, an awesome part of the story, and then the third part, I shouldn't really say anymore, but yeah, great book, fantastic insight into like I said, the loss and rediscovery of knowledge, and maintaining it, and the importance of maintaining stuff that you don't really know anything about, but you know it's important. I'd really like to revisit this. I probably read it about 5 or 6 years ago, probably longer. Yeah, great book. I'll read that again for sure. Anthony Burgess, Clockwork Orange. Never read it. Seen the movie a bunch of times. Got it at the Vinnie's in Dulwich Hill. Cool little penguin edition from 1972. Yeah, I like that one. I like the cover. I think it cost me probably like $1. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I have read this one. I have seen the movie a few times. The movie's great. The book is amazing. The book is beautiful. Yes, this is it's obviously a movie tie-in edition. Ken Kesey. This one is from 1973. Yeah, beautiful book, amazing. The movie's really good. The book is even better. I got this. Where did I get this? Salvo's Miracle. Probably like $2. A Nay Nin, Under a Glass Bell. I've got a bunch of a Nay Nin stuff. Am I saying it right? A Nay? I've not read any of it though. I found a bunch of it at a book, like I think it was the Salvation Army again. Bought them all. Haven't read them. But I think I've like dipped in and out of. This one's from 1987. This edition. But I've got a few other Nin books. Anais. That's not how you say it. I got this one from the Vinnie's in Dulwich Hill. It cost me like $1. It's the biography of an Australian metal band called Damaged. And I do like my metal, and I do like I don't know if I didn't really get into Damaged. I knew that the singer of Brutal Truth was in them for a while, and I love Brutal Truth. And it's called Brutal Truth, but The Brutal Truth. But I've not read it yet. But I will. I shall. Henry Miller, Air Conditioned Nightmare. I'd been after this for ages. The spine is nice and faded. I'm surprised I found it at all. Great cover. I think it's an ace. No, it's a Leon. When is this? Sorry, no, it's an Avon. This one was, oh, this might be a 1945 edition. It's copyright 1945. It doesn't have a, no, it must be 50s or 60s. Can't be 45. It would be quite different if it was a 45. Got an old train ticket in it. Sitting into Redfern. 17th of May 2016. Cost $4. I've read a bit of this. It's his travel log going around America. Yeah, haven't finished it. That's how far I got. I got this, I think, at the Vinnie's, Dulwich Hill. Spalding Gray. I love Spalding Gray. I got into Spalding Gray after I downloaded a bunch of audiobooks back in the early 2000s. And Spalding Gray's monologues were on there. I didn't know who the hell he was. And I listened to his monologues and I was just like, this guy is amazing. And one of his monologues, he talks about this book, about the writing of this book, Impossible Vacation. And from what you gather from his monologue, it's a massive book. And he's having real trouble with it. And he actually did finish it. And this one's a 94 edition. It came out in 92. It's pretty short. And it's kind of semi-autobiographical. And great book. Spalding Gray was an amazing monologuist. He was in a car crash. I think in the mid-2000s, and then not long after he killed himself by jumping off the ferry in New York, drowned, which was really sad because he was a great creative, and I've got another one of his books as well, which is like all his monologues. But yeah, I was really sad when Spalding Gray died. Steven Soderbergh did a really good doco on him. I think it was 2009. Not long after he died. Yeah, good little book. If you're a fan of Spalding Gray, yeah, it's well worth a read. I got this at a market in North Sydney, not far from the Harbour Bridge. Must have been 2008. Yeah. Old Spalding Gray, you missed, mate. Darryl Rainey, The Death of Forever. This is a great book. I'm a huge fan of this book. It is very tough. I haven't read it in a long time, but it's sometimes when I was doing this, I would get in like an A4 page and fold it up like that and just write my notes. And this is one of the books where I almost filled up a whole one. So both sides of just stuff, notes from the book. It's all about the hypothesis that your consciousness survives after death. And I say that now, and I read the book and I didn't understand what he was talking about. I would have to read it again. Darryl Rainey. It was a New Zealand born scientist and stuff. He did a series back in the 80s on TV. I never saw it. But I found this, I got this at Vinnie's in Dulwich Hill. And I read it and I was very impressed. And I filled out a lot of notes on it. And I think it came out in another edition called After Death. I've got a hardcover edition of that somewhere. But yeah, this is it's a challenging book. I would have to read it again. It's been probably 15 years since I read this. I would have to read it again. I really liked it, and I will read it again. Let's have a look at some of the notes I wrote down. Page 7. Our fear of death is a projective fear, i.e. we can foresee death long before it happens. However, modern man in the West has created a culture in which death has ceased to be a visible feature on the mental landscape. Page 16. Death is no longer a solemn rite of passage. Increasingly, it is an unpleasant interruption to normality, something to be got out of the way as soon as possible so everyone left can get on with their lives. What about over here? Page 90, page 100, no, page 105. McLean. Reptilian brain houses the 4 F's. Feeding, fighting, fleeing, and ing. Yes, so lots of little notes. I'll have to revisit this book and these notes. That'll be quite nice. Quite fun. Anyway, that's 1 foot of books. That's 1 foot of books. That's 1 foot of books. 1 foot. Bam. Alright, I'm out of here. I've got to go to work. Have a great day, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to discuss any of the books I've talked about today, hit me up down in the comments. Yeah, I'd love to get a bit of interaction going. Yeah, enjoy.